Hey everyone, you're here with Mark Bowell at perfectgardens.com. So we got a great question today from Think Teal. Awesome video. I have been using them as a beginner but want to grow organic. Any recommendations? And then Terry Comb recommended Nectar of the Gods. I actually really like this product too, Nectar of the Gods. I haven't used it or put my hands on the bottle in at least 4 years, 5 years, but at least 5 years ago I loved the product. So I can't talk for it today because sometimes companies, based upon the need to save money or profit margins or whatever, their core values begin to dissolve over time. And a lot of times too, brands get purchased and acquisitions happen, so you never know, things change. So what I'm going to do in this video for everyone listening still at this point is I'm going to walk you through a procedure of how I feed my plants, and I'm going to talk about what to look for in the back of these bottles if you want to grow organic, and that whole psychological thought process of growing organic and using your microbiology versus using cheap salts. And I'm going to reference salts versus rocks. Okay, rock is what you want, dissolved rocks, water-soluble rocks. Water-soluble salt is like steroids, okay? Just start to get your mind around this, that, well, they're all chemicals, but one is a man-made chemical and the other one is created by Mother Nature, okay? So let's go into the first step. The first step is to treat my water. Your water is 80% of this whole thing, actually 90% of this whole thing, because if your salts or if your water-soluble rocks don't get absorbed in the water, then they will not be absorbed in your plants. They're just going to sit as a solid or as a salt on the top or within your soil media. So over time, your salts will accumulate and will cause damage to your plants and will actually make your soil unable to grow over time. And the interesting thing about rocks is that they're natural. So you can have a whole bunch of them, but you can still have a plant grow right out of the middle of a rock. Okay, so think about that. Next time you go somewhere in nature, even I see it all the time when I'm next to a river or a pond or whatever, I actually see plants growing right out of the middle of a rock, and I always wonder how is that possible. And it's because, and you never see that plant being over fertilized, right? You don't see the plant going through mineral deficiencies, but it's growing through a rock. So kind of keep that in the back of your mind when you're thinking about these things and you're assembling your nutrients, because a lot of times, especially with this whole COVID thing, you very well might go to your hydro store and a lot of products might be back ordered, and then you're going to have to be able to look to the back of these bottles and pick what you want in line with your core values, and you're not picking something that is getting you back into the synthetic side. Okay, so the first part, treat your water. First thing I'm going to do is wherever my main water source is at, I normally only check it once or twice a season, believe it or not, unless something drastic changes like a drought or something along those lines. But I check my pH of my water and make sure the pH of my water is below 7. So that's really what I care about. If it's above 7, then you are going to have to set your pH, because anything above 7 is an alkaline, and it is going to make your salt normally inert. Just, you want to keep it below 7. And we don't need to go too far into it. I've talked about pH a lot of times. Next thing, what I like to do personally is I like to treat my tap water with Drops of Balance. Drops of Balance converts all man-made chemicals back to sulfated minerals. Okay, sulfated minerals are not salts, they are rocks. Okay, they're just broken down rocks that can now be absorbed because you're using a sulfuric acid to dissolve the rocks. And when you dissolve the rocks into sulfuric acid is water soluble. So when you put the sulfuric acid into the water, because of the possible hydrogens, it's easy for the water to absorb whatever is dissolved in the sulfuric acid. I treat my tap water with Drops of Balance. If you don't have Drops of Balance and you have an RO system, then run your tap water through RO system and start with RO water. If you don't have an RO system, then off-gas your water, because the main chemical in water, that is chlorine, is going to be something that's going to wreak havoc through your whole microbiology situation. Chlorine specifically will shut down your bioavailability. It's going to shut down the life of your soil almost immediately. So that is the thing you really don't want to put on your plants directly. A little bit of it, not going to be a big deal, and chlorine will off-gas fairly quickly. You just want to give it a little bit of time to off-gas, and then you can use it. Next thing to be aware is temperature of water. You always want to water your plants with cool water, not freezing cold. Next step. Okay, so if you want to grow organic, you have got to get comfortable with looking at the backs of these boxes. Personally, the brand I use is Organic Bounty B3, and that's the brand I like to use. They have a whole line. I don't use all of it, but I do like to use their veg and their bloom. When you look to the back of their bottles, you're going to see that it is derived from fish meal, soft rock phosphate, and potassium sulfate. You're going to see that the nitrogen, 40% of what you're getting in this box is going to be water-soluble organic nitrogen. And we've talked about nitrogen a little bit. Then you're going to get 0.6% of water-insoluble organic nitrogen. Remember, we've talked about this. Nitrogen is a gas, okay? And so in this bottle, this is why I really like their products, is that, well, if you have the grow, it's a little bit hotter, but it's not high. Nitrogen is not supposed to be high. The plant and the microbiology in the soil is supposed to make your plant alive, so it's absorbing the nitrogen through the stomas of its leaves. That's how the plant needs to be gaining its nitrogen, and that's how it gets nitrogen. Next thing is the available phosphate, 4%, and soluble potash. The next ingredients are kelp extract, and you're going to normally see two different types of kelp extract out there, and a lot of times you'll just see one of them, and I'll make sure to, I can't say the name, I'll put it on the screen right now. Then you're going to see 14% humic acid derived from linardite. Okay, so another rock right there. And yucca extract, so that's basically sugar for the food and a wetting agent. All those things are natural. All those things are rocks. And what I'm doing is I treated my water with drops of balance, and that so I'm adding in a little bit of sulfuric acid. Then the next thing what I do is I add in some beneficial bacteria and funguses. I actually like subculture M&B. I'd also recommend a brand called Raw. They have a great selection. And at the end of the day, these brands, even if they're not there, go to the back of the bottle, see what's in even the Fox Farm, Kangaroo Roots, and all those. So you look to the back of the bottle, you're going to have some beneficial bacteria and funguses in the water as well. So if that's all you have, right there. So I add the minerals, I treat my water because I want to create an environment for my beneficial bacteria and funguses to exist healthy, because if I put it into chlorinated water, right there, I'm destroying the money I spent to buy this stuff, right? So I treat the water, then I create an environment for the beneficial bacteria and funguses to just start to wake up a little bit. And then at that point, I then add in my veg or my bloom derived from a rock. Okay, that's what I do. At this point now, what I've done is I've created a healthy environment for these things to function properly. I also like to put my stuff in a Vortex brewer of some level. I actually really enjoy a spinning process. You don't need the fancy stuff. You could just literally just sit there with a stick and just turn your water and just keep creating it. That vortexing pattern, it actually increases the oxygen availability of the water. And why is that important? Well, oxygen oxidizes. So we are talking about the breaking down of these rocks, and so that they become water soluble. A lot of things will not be water soluble, and anything that doesn't become water soluble, it's okay. For me, I don't care, because I know with the power of microbiology, it has the ability to go and retrieve what it needs and pull it back into the plants, and it will continue to keep breaking down the rocks over time. It just needs to have a good selection of rocks around its root system. And as long as I don't mess with the pH too much, depending whether it is releasing oxygen or CO2 and absorbing it, it's going to be adjusting the pH of my soil from the day and the night so that it knows specifically actually what types of minerals to retrieve. And that whole thing is being done by the fungi in your root system. And the fungi is controlled through your pH. And it's very interesting that how that whole process works, you know, from the day and the night and the shifting of your pH. If I remember straight, it tells the specific microbiology to go and retrieve specific things that the plant will need at that specific time. Through this process, I created an environment so that the sugars that the plants are releasing, called exudates, and I might have missaid that, are communicating to the fungi in the soil and around the rhizosphere of the root system. And the fungi are going out and retrieving the minerals. And because I have a healthy set of bacteria in the soil, the bacteria are creating coenzymes for the minerals to be bioavailable. Because without that relationship of coenzymes and the minerals, then those minerals actually don't become fully bioavailable even after they get water soluble and get brought into the plant. So as you can see, this huge community of life has very intricate process. And when you add in things like chlorine or you jack up salt fertilizers, it begins to shut down the microbiology. Anyone that is using salt fertilizers, though, if you use drops of balance and treat your water with drops of balance, it will actually convert those man-made chemicals, a lot of them, back to sulfated minerals and fix the issue with all these salts that I discuss all the time. So if you are using like Fox Farm, again, I go back and I tell you, treat your water with drops of balance. Then I would recommend definitely cutting your nutrients in half, because a lot of those salts, they're not 100% water soluble. When you add in the drops of balance, it's going to make those salts bioavailable, and it's going to make your fertilizer like double concentrated basically, because a lot of the stuff in the bottles are not even water soluble. Your plants can't use them because they are incomplete chemical reactions that your plants don't really utilize. When you use drops of balance to treat your water, it will actually convert those chemicals that are in those bottles back into actual plant usable nutrients. Which will actually turn your synthetic grow back into an organic grow. And I hate to use the word organic, I'd like to just use natural versus organic. I hope this video makes sense on how I'm describing how all these things work together. Because all you end up doing to just destroy it is adding chlorine water, and before you know it, day after day, it shuts down the microbiology, and you're back to the plants needing water-soluble salts because they're bypassing this whole microbiology system with water-soluble salts. But the sad thing is that what's in these bottles, they basically make your soil inert. You know, they accumulate over time, and that's why you have to go buy more soil. That's why you have to go buy more stuff versus being able to reuse your stuff over time. I don't mean to talk this one to death, although this topic is a huge mindset shift. Okay, you really just got to sit down and think about your core values and how you're growing it in your garden on a daily basis, and what you're doing and what you're giving your plants. Is that going to make you feel good when you give your food or your herb to a friend, or when you use it and you don't have a great user experience? When I say by that, your throat hurts a little bit more, you can kind of feel it's itchy in a sense. And the reason why it's itchy is, to just describe it, because you are inhaling salts. And salts are like little microscopic razor blades, okay? And they are cutting up the back of your throat, causing trauma. Okay, we're not just talking, inhalation. We're talking about actual physical trauma because of the salts that you're inhaling. That's why when you're using a product that was grown off rock minerals, you won't have that. The worst experience you ever have is your throat maybe getting a little hot because you pulled in too much heat on the cigarette you're smoking. So it's really up to you, everyone out there. If you want to grow organic, you got to get away from using salts, and you got to comprehend how rocks and microbiology work together. Because if you don't understand how they work together, you're not going to be able to create a healthy environment for them to work properly. And if you don't do that, then you're not going to get the outcome you're looking for, and you're just going to go back to your salt-based fertilizers. All right, thank you so much. I hope you liked this video. Please like, share, and subscribe. Have a great grow, everyone.